So at this point, we are going to move to our last session, which is very interesting and special to me. So everyone can see my screen, right? So this is our panel, and the panel is titled as Creating a Successful and Sustained Data Science Pathways, and I'll be moderating this panel. And this is a panel is very interesting and important for us to know how to create a successful data science pathways for the students so that they can be actually moved to the data science career and advanced graduate studies. And also very important for us to know how to sustain that process. So to investigate that issues, we actually invite or created a panel composing our successful WCC alumni. So the panelists that you are going to see right now, they all are graduated from WCC at some point and were very successful in their career. And I'm so glad they could actually join us to give their experience, share their experience, and also the directions what they think is going to be impactful for creating a successful and sustained data science pathways. So I'm going to introduce the panelists one after another, and there is a slide corresponding to each one of them. So our first panelist is Dr. Siobahn de Grady. I hope that I'm saying your name right. Who is an assistant professor at North Carolina Central University. So Dr. Grady is an assistant professor of information science and systems in the School of Library and Information Sciences at North Carolina Central University. She's also a program director for the Information Science program, lab director for the Laboratory for Artificial Intelligence and Equity Research, and AAAS if-then ambassador, and an Office e-learning faculty fellow at North Carolina Central University. Her research focuses on utilizing machine learning to identify sources of misinformation on social media and on improving fault detection in autonomous vehicles. Additionally, Dr. Grady has been featured in museums throughout the nation, has spoken at national and international conferences, serves on multiple boards, and was featured as a statue in the world's largest exhibit of women statues. So if you are noticing our WCCU, LinkedIn, Twitter, any of those social media feed, you may notice that at some point, I couldn't recall exact the time, I think a month or 2 months ago, we have lots of stories about Dr. Grady being featured in Smithsonian as part of the world's largest exhibit of women statues to honor her effort in STEM education. So Dr. Grady, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So moving on to our next panelist, Dr. Amari and Luis. She is now a postdoctoral scholar at University of California, San Diego. So Dr. Luis is a graduate of Winston-Salem State University, earning a Bachelor of Science degree in computer science and minors in mathematics and French. During her tenure at WCCU, Amari remained heavily involved in on-campus and in the Winston-Salem community. Directly after graduating, she went on to pursue her PhD in computer science at the University of California, Irvine. Now, Dr. Luis is a postdoctoral scholar in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at the University of California, San Diego, where she is also a co-advisor for Early Research Scholars Program. Dr. Luis is always seeking opportunities to collaborate and give back to HBCUs. She recently worked with the Mozilla Foundation's Responsible Computer Science Challenge and presented along with co-consultant at last year's Equitable Philanthropy meeting. As a mentor, she strives to encourage and assist the next generation of computer scientists in hopes to increase the representation of Black women. Dr. Luis, thank you so much for accepting our invitation. And I'm so glad and proud to say that she is actually one of my very early research students who I started research with at WCCU.
Thank you, Dr. Deb, and everyone. Happy to be here.
So our next panelist is Kendra Reed, Principal Analytics Specialist at Amazon Web Services, AWS. So Kendra is a Principal Analytics Specialist with Amazon Web Services, where he helps some of the world's top enterprises develop their data strategy by employing analytics and data science to improve business outcomes. He also spent time at other big tech organizations such as Microsoft and Red Hat, working in the field of data and software engineering. Kendra is an avid proponent of open source technologies and providing resources to all to build and develop technology. Kendra is a 2013 computer science graduate from WCCU, where he was a chancellor scholar, served as the ACM president, and a member of the football team. Outside of his day-to-day, you can find him on the golf course or spending time with his wife, 2-year-old son, and 8-month-old daughter. Congratulations, Kendra, for achieving so much in such a short period of time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you. So our last panelist, which unfortunately actually cannot join us, I'm going to tell you the reason, but he is Mahamat Oumar. He is actually just recently got a position as a software engineer at Google. So Mahamat Oumar recently joined as a software engineer at Google based out of Silicon Valley. He is part of the Google Cloud Anthos team, where his responsibilities include bringing Anthos to bare metals. Prior to Google, Mahamat worked at IBM for 1.5 years. He mainly worked on developing IBM Cloud Packs that help businesses with a wide range of tools. Mahamat graduated in 2020 with a bachelor's degree in computer science from WCCU. During his undergraduate, he worked on a research project called OneUp, which is a course management platform with gamification features that helps motivate students to engage more in class activities. Outside of work, he likes cars and enjoy working out. So unfortunately, Oumar cannot be here because, as I mentioned, he just recently joined to Google, and he found out that he has an onboarding training just because he is such a newcomer over there that he cannot actually get out of. He thought that he could, but he cannot. So we are going to miss Oumar, but we are very happy to have the other 3 panelists. So the way we are going to move ahead is that we have actually set 5 questions, and we are going to pose the question, and then any panelist can jump on to answering those questions. And I would actually like not to share my screen, but to see the panelists talking. So I'm going to stop share. And for the audience, I think I'm going to post the questions, and for, of course, the panelists as well, so that they know what question, and then they can share their views as part of the question. So our first question is right over here. So what are the key elements that helped you to position yourself for success in the workforce and in advanced graduate programs? So I know 2 of you actually went to the graduate study, completed your master's, PhD, and then, moving ahead with your faculty career and postdoctoral career, and 1 of you are actually in the industry field. So please share what are the key things that you think helped you the most, and anyone can jump on.
I guess I can start because I'm the old head here. I graduated long ago before they did. But I think some of the things that helped me when I think back to Winston-Salem State, I saw Kendra was an ACM president. I was involved in ACM. I actually also was a lab assistant overseeing the lab back when it was in Carolina Hall. I also served as a mentor for a program that Dr. Jones did, like a summer bridge program for incoming computer science students, and so much more. And this was a while ago, so I know theirs might be a little fresher than mine, but I did a lot while I was at Winston-Salem State, and the professors that were there mentored me and took me under their wing. And actually, they probably didn't know it because at the time, as a young lady, I was also finding my voice and who I was, but I was actually looking up to them. They served as role models. Like I said, I started off in Carolina Hall when it was across campus, and the Elva Jones building happened, I think, like my junior year while I was at Winston-Salem State. And just seeing Dr. Jones honored in that way had a tremendous impact on me. And as I've already mentioned, She sort of took me under her wing along the way. I also had internships on campus where I worked at the help desk on campus, got a chance to learn a lot there and work with other individuals. So I would say that the key elements that helped me was from the time I arrived at Winston-Salem State and met the faculty, from the time I finished, every step of the way, there was someone guiding me on the right path. And so I would say that was quality mentorship, definitely quality instruction, and I had access to opportunities. Although I never participated in the Think Philip Morris, I know that they were on campus. Dr. Jones was always sharing opportunities. Of course, I couldn't participate in all of them, but the ones that I did participate in spurred me to move forward to, pursue my education even further. So I hope those are just some small tidbits, but basically all the faculty, every step of the way of my journey at Winston-Salem State kind of guided me and took me under their wings to help me get to where I am now.
Yeah, I guess I'll go next. I think there was a few things that helped me in my experience at WSSU and beyond. Just to piggyback off what Dr. Grady said with, having those mentors on campus with the faculty was very helpful and instrumental in kind of determining what I wanted to do with my degree. And, she mentioned the Philip Morris internship. So I actually had a chance to take a part of that my senior year. And that's how I got my first job, was via that internship. But then that kind of opened other doors with me getting my first mentor outside of WSSU. And he kind of, he's still my mentor now, helped guiding me through my career path and, bouncing ideas off him of kind of where I want to go, how I want to nurture my career, or areas I want to go into. And I think another thing that played a part was being part of sports at WSSU, bringing that discipline. It helped build this discipline for me, being able to balance both the academics and the sports that I still carry with me today.
Awesome. For me, the main key elements are similar to what the other panelists have mentioned. But also for me, it was more so participating in research opportunities. While I was at WSSU, I participated in a lot of the National Science Foundation funded, as well as the National Institutes of Health funded opportunities to conduct research, because I enjoyed conducting research. And at that time, I was new to research and I didn't know what it meant to do research. And through these resources, it really helped me to succeed in that area and to find my feet within computer science, as well as connecting and collaborating with those outside of computer science. So I did a lot of research with the biological sciences department just to see if I was interested in that type of work. And so those opportunities are available as well. And I know the last speaker talked about the arts, and that was really interesting. So you can find other departments that you can collaborate with for your interest within computer science. And that helped me really to succeed and know that I wanted to go on to pursue my PhD and to go to grad school. Beyond that, as what the others mentioned, I gained mentors along the way. Many of my mentors are on this call and on the panel. So it's been very helpful to have people to reach back to ask for advice. Dr. Deb has been very helpful in helping me to get fellowships, because if you are interested in grad school, one way to get grad school funded is through a fellowship. And you may need recommendation letters for these really highly ranked fellowships. And those on this call were very supportive in that way. And so that was very helpful for my success. So getting involved, finding opportunities on campus, and beyond that, going outside of your comfort zone. So through these experiences, I was able to present at conferences, a lot of conferences in undergrad, and I still continue to present at conferences. But through that, I was able to communicate my technical skills in a different way and to network. So at these conferences, you'll meet people who are in industry like Kendra Reed, and who are in academia like Dr. Grady and I, and you can provide the information to us that you're interested in these different areas. And that's how you gain mentors. And so that is really the key elements to success for me in my career.
Thank you to all of you. I forgot to mention for the panelists, please post your question. If you have any question at this point, you can just start talking by raising your hand or maybe just write it in the chat box. Especially for the students in the call, that's the whole point, to have the panel for you guys, right? To interact, inspire you. So I see a raised hand, Dr. Fuad.
Yeah, welcome back to WSSU, at least virtually. I know two of you as a baby freshman students, only just like yesterday. Anyway, it's a very I'm very proud to see you guys back and doing wonderful. My sort of like question would be, I'm feeling something. You guys talking about great teaching, mentorship, research in the department that encourages you, and that's behind how you are doing good nowadays. In the last couple of years, even before COVID, one thing I'm noticing in the classes and in my teaching, in my research, as I'm trying to incorporate more students into my research, is sort of like a not interested, maybe I'll do something else much easier. And I don't know where this came from, and I don't know whether you see that. I'm trying my best to excite, to encourage students, and you guys are example. But what else we can do? You guys are in the forefront now. What can we do to make them, excite them? Maybe they're thinking I will do TikToking and YouTubing, and I will be having a good life. I don't know if somebody can do that, but that's sort of like my 1 cent. What do you think? What the students who are now in the panel listening to you guys might say something that will hopefully encourage them.
I want to start by saying, hi, Dr. Fawad, but also there's nothing wrong with YouTube and the social media, this new era of technology. So if you are interested in going in that direction, that's okay. I started a YouTube channel. I mean, it's not my full career, but it's a part of who I am and what I do. So there are ways to incorporate your interests while working in STEM. And so to your question, I believe that departments worldwide, we need to expand our interests to relate to the students. So in whatever ways that is possible, so that students are excited about research and that students are excited about computer science and doing this technical work. And so I feel like that's one of the advice that I would give, because I work with early research scholars. So first-year students, second-year students who have never done research, and it's not easy. Like you said, they would rather do a path that is easier, and who wouldn't? But we need to incentivize these benefits of these careers. And so having us here today, and then also providing information on what the benefits are really important to get students to be encouraged to participate.
Yeah, I'll be happy to chime in too, and by no means am I an expert. Let me just start off there. But the strategies that I have found to be successful as a faculty member at HBCU is to help them see that I'm human. A lot of times when you're a professor, they hold us on this pedestal and they forget that we're just people. And a lot of times when it comes to research, it's the same concept. So what I'm trying to say is, just like in the classroom, when students work on things, they feel like it's just textbook. How does this apply to the real world? And what we have to do as faculty, and what I've found to be successful in my strategies, is number one, I help them see me as human. You don't have to do this, but I do use social media. So social media, Amari knows that, but not in a personal way per se, but it's just a way to let them know the things that I have going on. And when it comes to the research, they have to see the value. A lot of times, fortunately or unfortunately, it boils down to the money. And so a lot of times, if you can help them see, or the way that I break it down for my students is, I say, this grant that I have, it was just my idea, but I got paid to work on what I already love. And you're going to help me. And by us doing research, we're going to inspire other people to either do what we're doing or expand on the work that we're doing. So I think a lot of times we have to break it down on in a way that's more meaningful to them and how it can help them. And sometimes that's like, hey, you can be an author. By the time you graduate, you'll have authorship on a publication. That can help you if you want to pursue graduate school. If you want to pursue graduate school, that'll help you with a thesis and so forth. And so I'm just saying, sometimes breaking it down in those ways are meaningful, and also just sharing a piece of who you are, because sometimes they just see us as nerds or people who aren't cool, and we really are cool. We have lives outside of work. We have families. We like to exercise. I love flowers. I love to cook. And so maybe sharing those tidbits about yourself too can help normalize that you too are a person, and that you didn't start off at the top, right? None of us started off at the top. We had to work our way here. So those are some of the strategies I found to be successful. And then, like I said, social media, sharing what you do. That also is helpful, because sometimes they have no clue how much we do. They just know we're busy.
Yeah,
I think
excellent answers. Yeah, Kendra, go ahead.
I was going to say, I can answer it maybe from an industry standpoint, and speaking with other little kids that's looking to, I guess, kind of get into the field, or trying to inspire them to get into the STEM field. One of the things that I found that, especially in the Black community, that a lot of kids think being in STEM is the nerd thing to do, or whatever it may do. But then when you explain, when you work for, for a FANG company, the potential money that you can make, they're like, oh, wait a minute, this is maybe it's something that I want to do. So coming at it from that angle is kind of how I've inspired some to get involved with the field and kind of explore what maybe they want to do in that area. And the field is so wide, right? You don't have to do web programming. You don't have to do databases. There's so many things that you can do with the field itself, that there's always a niche area that you can find that you're interested in.
Thank you very much, guys, for all the excellent insights. We have a question in the chat, actually. So are there any specific things that you have learned later in your career that you feel could have been significantly beneficial to you professionally had you picked it up earlier on?
I can start here. Yes, confidence is key. I know that people say that all the time, but I've always been confident, but I didn't necessarily display it in the way that I should have. And I think a lot of times when you're, underrepresented in the field and you show up and there's no one that looks like you, sometimes you can feel that maybe I need to tone it down. But I'm saying dial it up a little bit. Be confident in who you are. You're there for a reason. And that would be my advice. That's something I learned later on. There's a difference between confidence and arrogance. I'm not suggesting arrogance, but I'm saying be confident in who you are when you step into that room, or even the Zoom space. All you have to worry about is the top half with the Zoom space. So show up with a nice presentation, smile, be confident, and, represent yourself well. And also understand that you represent just more than yourself. That's also a key thing that you need to learn. Not so much later, but you represent so much. Everywhere that all of us go, we're always representing Winston-Salem State University. Even though I'm a faculty member at another HBCU, they know where I started. And so confidence, that's what I would say.
I would like to add that I wish I would have done two things earlier on in my career. One, started my own business, and two, patent a lot of ideas that I've had. So the reason I say the first is because having your own business provides you full autonomy, and it's actually not as hard as I thought it was to start my own business, because I just recently did, by the way. And thank you. And also the second, to patent your ideas. I say that because that recently happened to me when I was working I worked in Denmark at Aalborg University, and I worked with a lot of engineers, network engineers, communication engineers, and a lot of their work was getting patented. And I'm like, how do I do this? And one of my friends who had recently worked in Denmark received a patent from her work. And it's one of the things that I should have done. And that was just 2 to 3 years ago. So I'm still learning things that I would like to bestow upon others to do. So if you have an idea and you're working on a project, and this could be a side project or research project, if there's opportunities to patent the idea, I would encourage you to do that.
For me, it would be to don't be afraid to network or speak to someone that you may feel is, I guess, above you is not maybe the right term, but if you're in the industry where you have someone that may be a couple levels above you, reaching out to them, being able to speak with them, kind of networking with them, opening that door to conversation with them. A lot of times they are willing to answer any of your questions that you have. And so that's one thing that I wish I had done earlier, is being able to reach out to those key leaders within your organization to make those networks and to help build your career, not necessarily to, hope to get a promotion, but just to learn how they got there and what areas you may need to work on, right? Because the technical piece is just one aspect, right? You have to also be able to have that business acumen and being able to think forward, have that forward thinking outside of just your scope when you're looking to lead larger organizations.
Thank you all again. Congratulations, Amari, on your new business. I didn't know that, but all the best of luck, okay? Yeah, those are all very good advice. Again, the confidence, I'm hearing that again and again, that, the motivation, just the desire to pursue and go forward and put yourself on the spot. Those are the very important thing. Kendra, there is a question just for you. Did you see that? What is your?
Yes, I did. Right now it's about a 16.
Okay. I know Dr. Kanampiu is also very much into golf. So I'm very glad that I'm recording this one. I was just thinking, listening to all of you, that from now on, I'm going to actually play this one as part of my classes. Every time I go to the class, I will just have this session in my Zoom classes. And anybody else who would like the link for the same purpose, please ask me. I think this is very valuable. So our second question is posted in the chat. So question is, what are the challenges in creating a successful and sustained data science computing pathways at WCCU? So you guys have been here, right? So you know what's our opportunities are, what's our challenges are, right? Siobahn, you are there whenever our departments are not even there, right? The Elva Jones building was not there. So you guys saw how we evolved, right? So from your perspective, what do you think is going to be our future challenges, especially focusing on data science, because this is kind of like brand new for us. So.
I can go first. I think, so talking about both areas, for the computing pathways perspective, I think one would be the evolving industry changes that are continuing to happen, right? So, 5-10 years ago, when I was graduating from Winston-Salem, the big thing, learning was, how to work with databases, networking, and those type of things. But everything now is in the cloud, right? And that kind of transformed right when I was graduating. So learning how to apply those cloud concepts, what it means to go from a on-premises environment to a cloud environment, and how that differs, and just outside of your traditional databases, a lot of customers are now going away from that and using more of your analytical databases, using a lakehouse database where you don't even put it in a database and just using kind of a data lake infrastructure. So being able to evolve and kind of keep up with those changes, right? It's always ever recurring, but being able to kind of stay abreast of that to teach those to the students so they don't have to start from zero when they're coming into those areas. From a data science perspective, I would say one of the things would be not only learning data science and algorithms and how to apply those, but how to take it from you developing on your local machine to doing large distributed processing. So working from a data set of, hundreds of points to going to millions or billions data points, and how to use distributed computing with that to do your inferencing and, do your ML algorithms. And then to add on to that, how to productionalize it, right? So I see a lot of, in my field, working with a lot of customers around the world, they are great with implementing algorithms, but they don't know how to productionalize it, make it so that the end user can use it, right? So being able to productionalize, making it repeatable, making a repeatable process so that they could use day in and day out in the industry is something else that I would say that would probably be needed in the field.
I'll jump in next. I agree with everything that he said. I was going to say just staying up to date with things. But additionally, the other piece is the big piece, and that's money. You need money to continue to fund students. So those graduate assistantships or undergraduate assistantships and so forth, and helping students understand what the expectations of those assistantships are. Because as was mentioned earlier, keeping them engaged, there's a certain level of responsibility, and it is also a blessing, right? Because those assistantships pay for your school. And if I'm still understanding, you get a little stipend every month too, and that doesn't hurt. So for the students that are on the call, if you didn't already know about that, now you know, you can get paid to be a student and do research and have fun. And so, yeah, definitely continuing the funding, and also maybe pipelines, right? Creating these pathways, not only to do the program at Winston-Salem State, but maybe creating pipelines to other industry partners where they can actually get their education, but maybe intern and get like experience as well to move forward in the field. I think that'll be a great sustainable way for them to work with people who are in the field, work with you all as faculty members, and kind of get that holistic view of what data science can do from a research perspective, but also in the industry, what's expected of them too. I think getting that holistic approach might be an excellent way and to continue to generate that money by working with those industry partners.
I completely agree with everything that other panelists mentioned. And one of the biggest inequalities that are faced by HBCUs in general, as well as Winston-Salem State, and I still consider myself a part of HBCU, as Dr. Grady mentioned as well, like I'm still representing my HBCU. And the biggest inequality is that the funds from industry partners. So the industry support needs to expand, and they need to increase their financial support as well as their pathways and their pipelines, as Dr. Grady mentioned. With this, we can create more successful and sustained data science pathways and programs at WSSU. And during my previous work as a consultant with the Mozilla Foundation, we talked about this at one of their equitable philanthropy meetings. And the purpose is that with these industry funders, there needs to be different pathways that relate and that connect with students from HBCUs. So providing opportunities to support their college, so paying for scholarships, having some sort of sponsorship, having additional funds for the summer, and having them intern in the summer would be a more equitable and a more sustainable opportunity for HBCU students to participate, as well as to increase your industry partnership. And so that's some of the concrete examples that I have. And so it really boils down to the current amount of industry support, which is great, but it may be limited, and then the financial support from these industry partners. In addition to that, partnering with research institutions and other HBCUs. I would love to see more HBCU collaboration as it relates to data science and computer science pathways. And at larger schools like my university, the UC system, we have the UC HBCU fellowship, I believe it is, or scholarship that we're working towards. So these are opportunities for us to create these sustainable and these more equitable and as well as successful pathways for students to get into data science and computer science.
Thank you all once again. So I'm listening to the industry partnership, how important it is, right? And we also understand that one piece of good news, after having the center for like 1.5 years, so now a lot of industries are actually reaching out to us because Winston-Salem has a lot of industry in it, you guys know. So a lot of industries are reaching out to us and they really want to be involved to our curriculum, want to take the intern from us. So starting from next fall, we are actually starting a kind of like more formal program where they can come, the industry partner can come to the classes, they can, be guest lecturer, and also most importantly, take our students in their facility to act as see the life of a data scientist or something like that for a day or a week. So those are the things we are in the process of formalizing. I'm sure the students will be learning a lot from those things. And yes, we are also getting support from money-wise. The money is very important, right? Started to getting support from industry, and I hope that, yeah, Amari, I totally agree with you. Partnering with the bigger research institution and not only just academia, other research labs and everything is very, very important. And we also have to look into that. There are too many things to do. Anyway, so moving on to our third question. So let me paste it first in the chat. Okay. So what are your suggestions for building flexible pathways and environments for students and advance the individual missions and data science visions of WCC at the same time? So again, what are your suggestions? I know that you kind of touched this in the previous answer, probably a little bit, but flexible pathways and environments for students and advance the individual missions and data science vision of the WCC at the same time.
I can start. So outside of what we just mentioned from our last answer, continuing to tell the story. I think that's going to be essential. Students need to see themselves recognized. So they need to be validated for the work they're doing. I'm sure you're doing all this stuff already, by the way. So let me just start there. But maybe I don't know if you have a newsletter or I know the university has a magazine, but just getting the work promoted and out there so that students can truly see what they're doing is making an impact. Data science is a huge industry. It's not going anywhere. So I think just having and continuing to share the story of CADS and what CADS does and how the students are integrated into the research and promoting that work will be one way to help continue to build these pathways, because you can't be what you can't see. And sometimes your students doing that work will be the role models and ambassadors that you need to get other students involved too. Sometimes, a friend of a friend will tell someone about something. They're like, you know what, I want to join that too. I want to learn about that. So I think that's just one small but easy way that could have huge impacts too. And then also prospective students that might get other students to want to come to Winston-Salem State to be a part of the computer science department and work with you as well.
Thank you, Siobahn. Is there anything else you would like to add, Amari or Kendra? I know that we already talked about a lot of this in the previous question, right?
Sure, I can add something in addition to what I said before. I think we could promote receiving feedback from students more. So I'm sure you do this as well, I'm not sure, but yeah, getting feedback from the students and participants. Surveys are a really, really strong tool. And so it's just the incentivization for students to actually fill out the survey. But also this could be a research study. It's a part of the research I actually do currently involves CS education and student experiences. And so you can conduct focus groups with students so they can elaborate on their experiences more, and you'll gain more insight on how to improve and to get suggestions on how pathways could be more flexible within your specific department. So conducting focus groups or interviews with students who have participated could be helpful.
Great, thank you. So moving on with our next question. Okay, so what are the best practices that your organization is using to diversify the data science related workforce? So we all know that there is a big problem with the DEI issue, especially in HBCU, and you all mentioned about the equity, being equitable and everything. So your organizations, like whatever you are representing right now, what are the best practices that your organization is practicing? So we want to learn from your experience as well.
You go ahead.
was going to say that from our organization, I would say not only with AWS, but a lot of the big tech organizations, they all have affinity groups. And within those affinity groups, you may sort of, when I was at Microsoft, it was BAM, which is Blacks at Microsoft. AWS is BEN, which is Black Employee Network. So a lot of times there are opportunities within those affinity groups where people are posting jobs about, hey, this is a data science job. We're looking for someone to, diversify the team. That's one way. Also going to these tech conferences that are targeted to minority groups like Afrotech. For example, a lot of the big tech will be there offering out internships, offering out job opportunities, interviewing on site, and providing job offers. And then a lot of companies will also offer AI ML scholarships. I know that Microsoft had one, I think AWS has one as well, designed specifically for the underrepresented minority groups that are out there. So there are plenty of opportunities that I know a lot of the big tech are doing to diversify the industry itself. The biggest problem I see is just we aren't applying to those, right? Kind of like what everyone else has said is we're just not applying to the opportunities that are out there for us. And so that is kind of why we're seeing, part of the reason why we are seeing some of the underrepresented areas there.
I didn't want to jump in, Amari, if you had something. But, one of the things that I know also, in addition to what was just mentioned about the different conferences, but I think sometimes the half of the battle is people don't know. And I say that because I see what happens inside of my organization. A lot of people reach out to me because they know me and I share opportunities with my students, but what about all the other, people they don't know that they're missing the opportunity, or the faculty member who may not be Black, who doesn't know about all the Black opportunities that are available. So I think that's part of the problem, but also when it comes to DEI, it needs to be integrated in everything that we do. So what I mean there is, like, for instance, in the classroom, or what, I'm not sure what all CADS is doing, but is there diversity within the guest speakers, right? Students, again, they can't be what they can't see. They need to see people from all walks of life that are working in the field and making those connections. And I know it's been hard with COVID, but even like mixer nights where there can be lots of different people that they can meet and talk to, and maybe even have different breakout rooms. I'm not sure if you all are back on campus, and even the curriculum, having articles from a diverse group of authors, those are like small things that I think sometimes people, not you all, but even maybe my organization, maybe misses the mark sometime. We have to really go to a deeper level with our curriculum and make sure that we're putting diversity in our curriculum too, that we're showing authors from all walks of life. We're having guest lecturer speakers, even sessions like this as well. It's very helpful to the students so they can actually see we're actually real products. They didn't pay us today to do this, by the way. The students here, we're doing this for free. We just want to be here because we're excited and we want you all to go and be excellent as well. But those are some things that I think can happen. It does take extra effort to make those changes within, our courses, but there are changes that I believe will be impactful, not just for today, but for a while to come. And that's something I don't know that everybody has done in the past.
I can speak from my perspective. I'm at a really large university currently, and a lot of their efforts for diversity, equity, and inclusion go into faculty training and DEI committees, which I think is okay. I think it's okay. I think the issue goes beyond, what we can do at this current state, but also before people come. So who you're hiring. So be cognizant of what type of people you're hiring into the department, and hire people who can address DEI to what extent you're ready to address DEI. For instance, I lead one of the seminars that are on inclusive practices in computer science, and I address a lot of thought-provoking topics within the field, going into industry, academia, and all different realms. And so I feel as though these are things that are working at my current university, but in the real world, I do find that it's beyond a DEI issue. It's more of a, are you hiring Black people? And so if we look at the data tells us everything we need to know. There is still a low representation of Black women and Black individuals at these large tech companies and in academia as well, and on tenure track. So there's many trade-offs to addressing DEI and to what extent you are addressing DEI. And so I think things that do work are the things that everyone has mentioned. So incorporating more seminars on DEI and, hiring, so putting support into these efforts for DEI at your university.
Thank you, Amari, Siobahn, and Kendra. These are excellent piece of information. And I agree actually with Kendra a lot, because he's said that a lot of the students are actually not applying for those opportunities. So that's kind of like, from my viewpoint, that's partially true. Like, not knowing, there is a big problem, of course, but even though knowing, going back to Siobahn, to you again, the confidence that you mentioned, like, lack of confidence or lack of the motivation to put you out there, I think this is a big problem. So that's why another thing, I want the students to see you guys and to see what could be accomplished. So our last question, and we have like 5 minutes left. So if you can quickly comment on, do you think that government, industries, and organizations are providing enough support for enhancing DEI in data science and computing? What are your suggestions for our students to explore the opportunities, if there are any?
I just have a suggestion, so I don't really have an answer to the full question, but I would recommend that students ask questions during your interviews. Ask about the diversity of the team and the culture of the team or department that you're going into.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, it's kind of off subject, but just what you were talking about, Dr. Deb, but also it sounds like professional development needs to happen too. So maybe those are some things that can be incorporated in the classroom as well. Like sometimes maybe taking a day not to do computing, but you're still doing computing, but the other aspect, like somebody might come in and talk about branding or, resume building for career services. Those might be things that need to happen too, so that confidence can be gained and people can learn how to network. But that's a sidebar from the question. But no, I don't think they're doing enough. I think DEI is going to be here forever, because apparently nobody knew that they were doing it wrong. I don't know how, but nobody knew they were doing it wrong. And so we have a ways to go. So I think it's going to take a while before we start realizing and changing the way that we do things. Like I said, changing when we develop our courses. Do we have a wide array of diversity of authors and people to show students that, this isn't just a white male dominated field? Are we doing all of those things? But I'm done. I don't want to talk too much. I want to give Kendra time to speak as well.
Yeah, I think, I don't think there's enough being done. However, I know that a lot of these, especially these big tech organizations, are trying to focus on that, but yet and still, I go in these meetings and still be the only person of color that is in the meeting, right? So I still think there's a lot that can be done. And then, from a government standpoint, especially with data science, the government, in my experience, is always slow to move, especially with industry changes. So, from that aspect as well, there's a lot that can be done there and a lot of opportunities.
Amari, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I do have a last thought. I wanted to push back on something that you mentioned earlier, Dr. Deb, that students aren't applying. I think students are applying. I really do think they are. I just don't think they're getting interviews or, not getting hired. And I'm actually one of the early research scholars programs that I'm working with. That's something we're actually studying. It's really the disparity amongst students receiving internships as it relates to their demographics or background. So Black African-American students, Latino students, and then other students, depending on the demographics of our university. So it's really interesting. So that's something that needs to be explored more, encouraging students to apply to positions even if they don't feel they're qualified. And I believe that more work could be done on preparing students. So when you have the industry partners coming in, the preparation should be a part of their talk, how to prepare for these interviews such that you're ready to interview, because they are really brutal. The interviews are brutal, I'm not gonna lie. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you. Thank you all. Very insightful views and lots of good suggestions. I actually learned myself a lot. Of course, I knew about all those things, being involved in computing education and data science for such a long period of time. But I kind of like see the importance of putting yourself as a human. That's the one thing I remember very correctly. My students, Amari, Kendra, probably can attest that we are very nerdy, like, always like algorithm. I used to teach algorithm, like, the mathematical, those things, but didn't probably spend a lot of times, but now I do though, okay, just to assure you, didn't spend a lot of times. I was back then a new professor, like, putting myself as a person, like, share my stories or telling what was my obstacles or challenges are, but now I do. So I truly appreciate all of your great thoughts. Do you have any question from the audience? Probably one more question, because we gotta conclude at 1 more minute. So thank you once again, all of you, for your time and your effort. And as I say, I'm going to show this video to all my classes from now on.
Thank you so much for having us. I'll just put my link in the chat if there are students who want to talk further. Thank you so much.
Yes, please do so, your email address or your social media link. And if anybody wants to reach out to any one of our panelists for further advice, I have their contact, so you can also ask me as well. Thank you, guys.